Welcome into the DRF College Sports Podcast. My name is Jack Fitzpatrick. I'm joined by the one, the only, the Bennett Conlon. Looks like Bennett's sporting a nice polo, fresh haircut. Is that what I'm seeing?
Got a fresh haircut. Got kind of a sweater on right now, and a little button down underneath it. It's still cold, Jack. It's still cold here on the Maryland DC border. It's not really switched to the spring summer that I'm hoping for.
Oh, see, it's absolutely beautiful down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's about high 60s, beautiful blue skies, the perfect amount of breeze. I'm not trying to rub it in or anything, but treated to a fantastic Duke UNC Final Four game at a brewery outside. You know, the world's fantastic here below the Mason-Dixon line, which I guess you're technically below, right?
I think so. But you're in the Carolina area. So what was it like being out there for Duke, North Carolina?
Oh, it was electric because Charlotte's a very transplant city. So it's kind of similar to what like the Northern Virginia area is for all Virginia natives. Granted, thinking about it, probably this podcast listenership isn't a lot of Virginians. So I mean, it's like the big city that every person who graduates from Chapel Hill or Duke kind of flocks to. There's a lot of opportunities. If it's not Charlotte, it's Raleigh. But in Charlotte, you have so many Duke, you have so many UNC alumni. So we're at this brewery, and it's about 50-50 split between Duke and UNC fans. And it could be, dangerous with alcohol involved and two teams that don't like each other. But it was a really good atmosphere. And when Caleb Love hit the three with like 26 seconds left, the bar went absolutely nuts. And every Duke fan just put their head in their hands on the table. UNC fans jumping up. I became a UNC fan for the night. I was jumping up and down with people I had never met before, and it was a great time.
Yeah, heck of a game, heck of a matchup. And Carolina's got to come back, play again. But yeah, it was certainly one that I was glad that we were able to have that matchup in the NCAA tournament. It was a good time to watch.
Yeah, I like your little tease here because I know where you're going to go with this when we start talking about the national championship here. You don't think UNC can replicate what they did against Duke. You think it's a huge emotional letdown spot. And when we talk about spots like we have all season, this has been a time you typically fade the team coming off of the huge emotional high.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. I also think Kansas is maybe the better team. And you look at North Carolina, they don't go that deep, right? They typically use, a rotation or two. They don't go to their bench all that much. You also had Baycott, who rolled his ankle a little bit in that game. So he's dealing with maybe a little bit of some pain in his leg. And he's obviously a huge part of what they do. It just feels like a good spot for Kansas. So I do like Kansas in the spot. But then again, you got a Carolina team that I believe is 5-0 against the spread in the NCAA tournament. And they're, 3-0 straight up as a shortish underdog. So this is kind of a spot they've been in all tournament.
And straight up, they've only lost 2 games since the start of February. They're 9-1 over their last 10 against the spread. So they're looking solid.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly looking good. I mean, they play well. You also got I would say Kansas has looked pretty good this year too. So it's two teams that are deserving. They're blue bloods. Carolina's an 8 seed, but shout out to Hubert Davis, got them rolling because they had some rocky results. Even one of those few February losses came to Pitt at home, and it was just a weird one. But since that one, the last month and a half, they play great ball.
Yeah, UNC is looking like one of the best teams in the country as of late, and clearly they've outplayed their 8th seed ranking. They are in the national championship, the lowest ranked, or I guess, what's the proper way to word it? The lowest seed to ever make the national title since 1985 when Villanova did it as an 8 seed. Is that the proper way to word that?
They might go highest seed.
Highest seed, okay.
Numbers, I don't know. That always confuses me. I just try to avoid the phrasing. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so UNC as an 8, that is the worst seed, I guess you could say.
I think,
since 1985 to make the national title. Not playing like the 8 seed. We'll talk a little Final Four recap here. We'll break down what happened in Duke UNC. We'll talk about what happened in Kansas Villanova because I don't think either one of us expected that game to play out the way it did. And then we'll talk some national championship stuff. We'll talk player props. We'll talk really all things national championship. And then we'll get up on out of here for the last episode of the DRF College Sports Podcast of the 2021-2022 season. So what do you want to talk about? Do you want to go Duke UNC first, or you want to go Kansas Villanova first?
We can do either. I've got to coach K Rant at some point, but
let's go.
We can do either. Let's
save
that. Let's do Kansas
perfect
Villanova, which was like the forgotten Final Four game, in part because it wasn't that competitive. Kansas just started really strong. I feel like we noticed the loss of Justin Moore a good bit for Villanova, but I also just feel like Kansas might have just been better, like even if Justin Moore played.
Yeah, I don't know if Justin Moore is going to necessarily give you a 20-point bump in the final score line to like make it competitive or even give Villanova the win. The story of that game to me was Abaji just absolutely flaming it from deep. I think he was 4 for 4 from deep at one point. He's shooting 93% from beyond the arc in the last 2 games. He was 100. I don't know how many shots he took last game, but he was 100% in their Elite 8 game, and then in the Final 4 game he was like 90%, something insane where he's just absolutely obliterating teams from behind the arc. David McCormick, 25-9. That, I think we talked a little bit on the last podcast. That game within the game between Baycott and McCormick is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, that's huge. The big guys and who can kind of hold the edge there. It's just a really clean performance by Kansas. 18 assists, 7 turnovers. Both teams hit 13 threes, which I thought was kind of interesting, where you've got a Villanova team that shot over 40% from 3 and hit 13 of them, but they couldn't really do anything from 2-point range. They shot it pretty poorly from that area. Turned it over more than Kansas did, which is certainly tough. Just not a great defensive showing. Kansas was really, really good offensively, scored a bunch. Game went way over the total. And heck of a performance from Kansas. And I don't know if they're going to shoot the ball quite as well as they did. I'm not expecting like 55% from 3 in this one, but I still think their offense is something to keep an eye on because they've been pretty effective and efficient all year offensively.
Yes. And I had another point I was going to go. Oh, first game I think we've seen for a while where Kansas put together a first and second half performance that were both really, really solid. Since the second half against Miami, I want you to guess what they've outscored their opponents by.
Probably like 45-ish to 50, something like that.
Yeah, just about 48. They've outscored their opponents 128 to 180.
Wow.
Yeah. They're fine on all cylinders. They're fun to watch.
That can't be right. 128 to something else. You said 128 to 180.
Oh, I meant 80.
To 80. That makes way more sense. I was like, wait, they scored 180 points in the last 60 minutes?
I'm so sorry.
I was like, that doesn't seem right. That makes more sense. That's really good defense too, or at least pretty good defense, I think. The Miami defense is maybe a little more impressive than some of what they did against Villanova, but the offense is clicking. They look like a team that has been really good, and they were kind of the forgotten 1 seed at times this year, right? I feel like Gonzaga and Arizona were probably 2 of the more popular national title picks. I guess maybe Baylor was a little forgotten too with some of the injuries they had down the stretch of the season, but it just felt like Kansas had been there all year and maybe didn't get quite the shine, right? Because Coach K's final season, you had Gonzaga and Arizona just having such a low number of losses that it just feels like a lot of the narrative wasn't focused on Kansas, and they might end up cutting down the nets.
I think a lot of the focus and narrative around Kansas also ended when they had the close loss to Providence, and then they had the close win. I can't even talk today. This is embarrassing. The close win over Providence, the close win over Creighton, where they're expected to go out and cover that game with ease, and they go 0-2 against the spread in both of those games. But then since then they've, and then pair that with the slow start against Miami, and now all of a sudden they've just absolutely looked like national champions. And it's going to be tough for UNC to win this game. But before we go into that national championship breakdown of the game, I want to hear your Coach K rant. And I also want to hear your thoughts on Duke UNC and if you thought this game was the best game in college basketball recent history.
It was up there because of the stage and the game was competitive. Like, it wasn't like a perfectly played game, but it was a close game between 2 rivals that had never played in the tournament, and it was Coach K's final season. So, like, with all that into it, it kind of lived up to the hype, which was awesome. I will say, when you look at like Carolina's path to this point, I would say it's been a lot harder, understandably, as an 8 seed instead of a 1 seed. But like Kansas beat Texas Southern, Creighton with 2 of its best players injured, Providence, Miami, and Villanova without Justin Moore. So like, not that impressive when you look at what North Carolina's done, where they beat Marquette by 30. Then you go through Baylor, UCLA, Duke. Obviously, the St. Peter's game was a little like pat on the back, where they just kind of rolled through and Baycott made them look like children. But obviously, Carolina's, I think, played really well to get to this point too. They're really good against Duke. I've been super impressed. So I'm pretty stoked for this matchup. I was really enjoyed the Final Four, the last game, Duke Carolina, and I'm looking forward to tonight's game. As far as the Coach K rant, the thing that bothers me about the retirement tour, the farewell tour, is when he says it's not about him. That's what drives me kind of crazy, because there was a lot of like people on Twitter who, he had a quote after the game, is like, someone asked him about how it felt to like have his final game, and he was like, it's not about me. Like, it's not about you. Then why is like the Nike Twitter account tweeting that you can't spell championships without K? Like, right? It's not about you, but you
That's
have
also
like
not right.
horrible spelling by Nike, so that was tough. But they had like this whole campaign about his career. He's made it about him throughout the entire thing. If you announce it early, you're clearly in some part making it about yourself. And people, the argument that I kept getting from people on Twitter was like, well, he did it for the succession plan. He did it so the recruits wouldn't be blindsided. It was like, when has a coach ever cared about like if an 18-year-old's future got kind of screwed up by something? They don't care. They just want to get the best players possible, and they move on to whatever job they can. And Coach K, I don't think, is any different. He wants to win, and maybe he wanted Duke to like have a better succession plan. But at the same time, like Tommy Amaker, there are reports that Tommy Amaker was the pick among like Duke, administration, and he steered him away to have him go with John Shire as the head coach. Like, Amaker played for him, was one of the players on a team that helped save his career somewhat famously when he was on the hot seat early in his Duke career. And like, how does he repay him 40 years later? By screwing him out of the job. Because he makes everything about him. It's like who he wants to be his successor, all these things. But the succession plan comments where they're like, you have to do it for recruiting. It's like, oh yes, like Roy Williams, who left North Carolina, and now his program in the next year has really, really struggled. And oh no, they're playing the national championship tonight, because it doesn't matter if you have a stupid succession plan that you've like handcrafted with John Shire. It's not necessary for recruiting. The program is Duke. Like, there's a one and done transfer rule where you can get whoever, or not one and done, but like the one-time transfer rule.
Yeah.
You can get whoever you want in the transfer portal, and you're Duke. You could obviously get players. Players are still going to play for Shire or Amaker or whoever. Like, you don't need the farewell tour where you're receiving gifts at every road stop to somehow like save recruiting. How does that make any sense? So I thought that was annoying, because it's not about me. It's like, if it's not about you, you wouldn't have announced it, 10 months or whatever he did in advance, and then receive all these gifts. The dude narrated his own like retirement farewell video. It was not about him though, right? It's just about the kids. So I thought that was really stupid. It's just like super annoying. I'm glad for the Duke stuff to be over, because that would have been insufferable tonight, even though I guarantee there's still some way that they're going to shoehorn lots of Coach K content into the broadcast.
One of my favorite things is your Coach K rants. Like, it's got to be a top 3 thing that we've been able to do the last couple of podcasts. Just give you the floor, let you talk about Coach K. One of my favorite things.
It's very, very frustrating. Duke fans are like, you're jealous because you hate us, right? We're just so good and we win. It's like, no, like, I think everyone respects like him as a coach and the program and all those things. It's when he like clearly goes out of his way to have this long farewell tour, and then like he was miffed, and other Duke staffers were upset when like Carolina didn't honor him enough the game at Chapel Hill. It's like, clearly it's a little bit about ego then, if he's like, I didn't receive the gifts I'd hoped for. There was only a tribute video. Like, super annoying. So
here's a question. I'm gonna put up a question on the screen.
Okay.
I want to see what your reaction to this is. I'll read it out loud for our podcast listeners. I just realized that this is also a video and the podcast. Does UNC have the ultimate trump card over Duke for this rivalry? By that, I mean, like, any argument Duke has, I feel like UNC can throw down this card and just be like, we beat Coach K in Cameron Indoor's final game and to kick you out of the national championship race.
Yeah, like obviously, yeah, they've got this huge edge now, right? Where this is one of the biggest games in the history of the rivalry, and they won it in Coach K's final season, first year head coach doing it, a team that like objectively probably has fewer like NBA difference makers. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think they definitely have this for a while. It's hard to come back from this if you're Duke. Not actually, right? They'll come back and have a team next year and they'll be fine as a program. But like in terms of like online arguments or like you're at a bar and you're bickering with a North Carolina fan, you're gonna have a hard time. You're gonna need some big time success over the next few years and Hubert Davis to like not live up to it. The other thing that's interesting too is with Hubert Davis being so successful in his first year as a head coach, like the pressure on John Shire to like come anywhere close to that is going to be really interesting because it's a obvious kind of easy comparison, right? Where they both took over for legendary coaches. Shire is going to be 1 year behind Hubert Davis in terms of how long they've been at each respective school. But like Hubert Davis has a chance to win a national championship tonight his first year. Worst case, he took them to the national title game, had two huge wins over Duke. Like I think Carolina fans, he's got a little buffer there, and certainly the edge on Shire as Shire tries to come in and usher in a new era of Duke, which their succession plan. We'll see how it works, Jack.
Yeah, and last point on this game, it's just very insane to me. I think the biggest thing you can point to about the turnaround for UNC this season was getting just absolutely blown out at home against Duke and then being able to go on the road at Cameron Indoor in a raucous environment, beating them there, and then also on a neutral court on the biggest stage in college basketball recent history, you beat them again. But so it's just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
With all that being said, I think it's time to move our attention to a little game that's happening tonight. I know it seems like the college basketball season's over, the way all the media is talking about Duke UNC, and I know Bennett's going to have a point on this coming up. But there is a game left. That was for all the marbles, but now they have to play for some more marbles tonight. UNC is a 4-point dog against Kansas. Tip is at 9:20 on TBS. Totals at 151.5. That seems a little high, but Kansas, UNC, I'm leaning UNC +4 and even a little bit money line. But I want to hear your initial thoughts, initial breakdowns on this. Can't talk again on this matchup. Boom.
Both teams really good. Both teams playing really well. I think it's like a pretty good matchup on both sides. I mean, you can dive into it a little bit. I guess Ken Pom likes Kansas's offense and defense a little bit more than it does Carolina's on both ends. But again, that takes into account the full season. You got a Carolina team that like got blown out quite a few times. So the way they're playing right now feels like a pretty even matchup. I think Baycott's, whatever his status is, I know he's playing in the game or trying to play, but I wonder if he's 100% or not quite 100% in that matchup. So that's something to keep an eye on because he's obviously a huge factor in terms of what he can do, shot blocking and rebounding and even scoring in the post for Carolina. So I don't know, with him a little banged up, you've got the emotional hangover, which I do think could be a very real thing. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen, but I would kind of imagine that if you're Carolina, you just won this huge game. They talked about like Saturday night, like, yeah, of course we're going to celebrate this. It was huge. And then you've got a Kansas team that I don't think the Villanova win was like groundbreaking for them, right? They cruised the whole game. So I think for them, they're like locked into this. Whereas you got Carolina trying to reset on Sunday and then today, Monday. Plenty of time to do that, but I don't know. I think personally, I don't know how you feel, but I kind of feel like the emotional hangover is going to be real in some capacity.
Yeah, I think the emotional hangover is the biggest part, Like, I think both of these teams, if you're looking at stats, it's really hard to like look at full season stats to really break down this game in the right way because UNC started so slow and they weren't good. So the analytics don't really like them. I think they're 13th in Ken Pom. They're somewhere down there. And they just have bad season numbers. They average like 76 points per game, and it's only like a 5-point margin of victory on average for this season. But then when you break down February on, or if you even break down, just in the NCAA tournament here, as you look at drf.com/sports, they have an average margin of victory. Granted, this is a little inflated due to their absolute obliteration of Marquette and their not obliteration, their 20-point win against St. Peter's. So it is a little bit inflated, but they have an average margin of victory in the NCAA tournament of about 14, and they're averaging 82 points. They've scored over 90 in 2 of their 5 NCAA tournament games. So UNC, I'm long-winded on this point. UNC matches up really well with Kansas. They have the big guys that can take on Kansas. They play that positionless brand of basketball. They're going to be able to stretch the floor. And Kansas is going to kind of do the same thing. They only really run with one big man, and that's David McCormick. So, and that's the game within the game is McCormick and Baycott. It's going to be really, really fun to watch. And I want to talk about that that matchup later on. But I think they're really evenly matched teams. And like you said, the emotion comes into this. They just won their national title against Duke. They just won that rivalry for at least the next 25 years. So can they recenter, refocus in 48 hours? Can Baycott recover from his rolled ankle in 48 hours? Like, that's the craziest part of this whole game. If this is a week from now, I like UNC in a landslide, and I think this line's actually a little bit closer. I think it might be like a -2 type of thing, a 2-point line. But you're sitting here in 48 hours. It's going to be tough for UNC. I do like them. I like them at plus 155, 165 money line, but I can also see a game where Kansas definitely is able to just take advantage early. UNC comes out heavy-footed and just can't ever recover.
Yeah, it's a tough spot mentally. I do think that like there is some benefit to it still being a national title game. Like I think Carolina is the kind of program that like they're not just pleased with beating Duke. Like the expectation for them is to win national titles and contend for national titles. So I think that helps. The fact that like, hey, the job's not finished, you can maybe make that argument for them and that they actually believe that. It just like that game was huge. Like I feel like that game had significantly more hype than this one. Like it's just natural for them, I feel like, to have some sort of letdown. If they don't, good on them, and crazy good coaching if they're able to kind of avoid that. But it just feels like it's natural for them to maybe come out slow. And if you spot Kansas points early, I feel like they're good enough to hang on and keep it that way throughout the game. They're just such a good team. They've been so good recently. Going back to the Big 12 tournament, they were really, really dominant, I thought, in some of those games. So they're playing well. They're shooting it well. They have a lot of guys who can shoot it from different levels of the floor, too. They're a well-balanced team. And when it just feels like going in, that was kind of my play. It was like, whoever wins Duke, North Carolina, I'm going to take to lose because I think it's an emotional hangover. And I'm going to stick to it, even though Carolina is a team that I feel like I thought would have lost multiple times already.
See, it's really smart of you to stick to that, because I said that on the podcast as well, that if, whoever comes out of Duke UNC, I'm taking Kansas. And then, I've drank the Kool-Aid. I've drank the Hubert Davis Kool-Aid, and I'm all in on the Tar Heels. And I just think Baycott, if he can come out at 90%, which is asking a lot because he rolled his ankle pretty roughly near the end of that Duke game, I think he's better than McCormick, and I think that's where the game's going to be won and lost.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun matchup for sure. And then also, like, what do you get out of Caleb Love, who's been pretty solid in this NCAA tournament? Like, he's had some big-time performances, and he wasn't great from 3 against Duke. He was 3 of 10, but he was 8 of 10 from inside the arc. Obviously, he hit a pretty massive 3 in that game, but was really good going to the rim.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I would say it was rather important. So, like, he was solid in that game and had 28 points on 20 shots. So, I mean, I thought he played well, and when he does play well, as he has at times this tournament, they are a tough team to beat because he can go off and get you 20 plus pretty easily. He's really athletic and creates his own shot well. He's fine like being one-on-one in isolation. Good player, really good player. So I'm excited for this matchup because you've got some other guys on Kansas who maybe let it flow through them a little bit more, but Remy Martin can be a little bit of a microwave where he heats up pretty quick, gets some scoring going. Didn't do a lot against Villanova. He was one that was maybe a little overhyped going into the Villanova game, but
he also didn't do a lot against Miami.
He was decent in that one. He had 3 threes and had 9 points. I'll give him some credit.
Yeah, he had 3 threes and 9 points. That's all he did.
That's pretty much what he's been doing in the tournament, though. He's just shooting, or actually, it was a lot of 2s. Excuse me. He's been shooting a lot of 2s. I was looking at the wrong column, but he's made some 3s and gotten to the free throw line. The Providence game, like a lot of the scoring where people were kind of hyping him up was like late game or mid game, whatever, free throws. But good player, can do some nice things,
Yeah.
but did not do a lot against Villanova. So interested to see if he gets going. I like the under in this game. I feel like you have a lot of guys who are shooting like above their averages this year. Just feel like that plus some nerves. Since 2010, I think 8 of those 11 NCAA national title games on the men's side have gone under the total. So I'm going to trust the trend, and I'm going to take the under tonight.
So you're on the under. Are you on Kansas -4 or UNC +4?
That one's a tough one. I bet Kansas money line. I think
Yeah.
Kansas is going to win. So I mean, at that point, you should probably just do like -4, right? But I guess you got a few points in there where they can hang on. I don't know. I'm tempted. If I was betting a side, I'd be tempted to take North Carolina just because of how well they've played. And you're telling me it's a fairly even game and they can get +4. But with the hangover effect, I would lean Kansas -4. Did take them on the money line, and I think it goes under. I also kind of love the fact that, like the Villanova Kansas game, everyone was like, "Oh, it's got to go under, right?" Because Villanova just played that big under, goes way over. After watching like Kansas and North Carolina on Saturday, I feel like people are gonna be like, "Wow, gonna be a shootout. Like these offenses are unstoppable," and I don't really think that's the case. So I think it'll go under. I like the under here. I know it's moved a little bit from. I think it might have opened higher than it is, if I'm not mistaken. Like
Opened at
152.5.
153.5.
Yeah, so it's moved a little bit, but I do like the under in this spot.
All right. I dig that. If you look at the screen now, for our video watchers, our podcast listeners, I'll explain. Kansas currently, according to drf.com/sports, Kansas has nearly 70% of all of the public bets at -4. UNC riding with 31% of the public. 54% of the public bets are on the under 151.5, which explains, why that number has come down 2 whole points since it opened on Saturday night. I'm with you on the under. I think I didn't really have a strong opinion on it either way, but I also 151 just seems a little high. I don't know why. It just feels like that might be a little bit too high for this game. And you're playing the hardest games of your life. And I know that's really like a stupid way to bet. You're like, I think they're going to play really hard and defensively that's going to mean something. But that's how I'm going to bet that. I like the under. I do like UNC. I said UNC money line. If I'm giving out a best bet, I like UNC +4 here. But I'm going to sprinkle that money line just because if it's going to be close late, I think UNC can pull it out because Caleb Love has ice cubes flowing through his veins. Baycott is a walking double-double. Shout out him for breaking the all-time record for double-doubles in an ACC season. That's a mouthful to say. And then I didn't even mention RJ Davis, who put up huge numbers against Baylor, or Brady Manick, who's an absolute terror, 6'9" forward who can stretch the floor. There's just so much going on for both of these sides. It's going to be such a fun game. But if I'm betting UNC +4, I like that.
Yeah, I feel you there. The under is the play that I like. I am a little slightly terrified. Like they both go really fast. I didn't realize how fast Kansas goes, but the tempo
They're
would
both
expect it
like
to go
top third tempos in the nation.
Yeah, so you're going to need some missed shots there for sure to help. But I just feel like a lot of the guys have been shooting out of their minds on both sides, like really recently. Like you mentioned, what is it? Agbaji shooting like 90%,
93% from deep, and he's shooting like 75% from the floor in the last 2 games.
8 of 9 from 3 the last 2. Feel like maybe he'll slow down a little bit. So I'll take the under there. I like it. Looking forward to the game. Not looking forward to the tip time, man. I love that what the women were done yesterday by like 10, something like that, right around 10. That game was done after like 3 minutes of game time because they got South Carolina had like 6 offensive rebounds in the first 3 minutes. It's like, oh, this one's over. Don't necessarily see that happening today, but 9:20 tip is brutal.
9:20 tip's just too late. Like, I sound like an old crotchety man, but like, come on. I know the West Coast, but they should get home and play. We have 8 p.m. kicks on Monday Night Football. We could do an 8 p.m. tip for this.
8 p.m. seems good. I mean, I hear them with the West Coast, but I refuse to acknowledge the West Coast's existence.
I mean, that's why they should just live on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's like that's your fault. You decide to live over there. You realize that you're gonna miss out on this. Instead, this thing is going to end at 11. We'll see if they actually start at 9:20, right? If they actually throw the ball up
The
in the
tip isn't
air.
until 9:25 because 9:20 is when they go to
Yeah.
air. So tip's not until 9:25. And then not to mention they're going to have a longer than usual halftime because it's a national championship. I think it's going to be 20 or 25 minutes instead of the normal like 15.
Yeah, so it's going to be a late night, so we'll see if it's competitive or not, but I am looking forward to one final college basketball matchup. Sad that it's coming to an end. I enjoyed both tournaments, but yeah, we'll see if we can actually I struggled betting this. We'll see if the under can come through and give me one final win here.
Yeah, we went from a fantastic regular season of bets to a tough March Madness of bets. Real quick, last thing we go on this last episode of the DRF College Sports Podcast for season 1 of it all. Let's go a couple prop bets. This is player points. Anything here that you're thinking about playing in terms of props? I know both of us, we're not the biggest props guys, but I think we gave out 2 winners with props last time.
This is some good questions here. Tempted to take the Manic under. I think that's 16.5. I just feel like if the game goes under, some of these are going to have to go under, right? Remy Martin is an under that the odds are kind of favoring that. It doesn't really feel like Remy Martin is actually going to go off in this game. Might get a few points, but I could see an under there as well, even though the odds aren't as great.
I like an RJ Davis under.
What's he at? Yeah, 14 and a half.
Because I think if this game's going to be one, it's going to be one with Manic, Baycott, and Love. And I just don't see Davis. And with the under too, I don't see Davis pitching in 15 points.
The Caleb Love argument that I think we had last time and it paid off well.
He's going to shoot.
Dude shoots the ball a ton.
He had 20 shots last time. He was 3 for 10 from deep, 8 for 10 inside. So what? 11 of 20, which not a bad mark, but he's going to get his shots up.
Yeah, like if he burns you on the, what is he, 17 and a half? If he burns you on that, like whatever, because he's shooting 20 to 25 times, but like plus free throws. So I like taking those just because it's like, all right, at least I know even if there's 10 minutes left and he has like 6.
Yeah.
Like he's
there's a chance he's
the ball. Yeah, it's not over.
I think Abaji, this is a fun one because you said it last time. He lets the game come to him. He's not going to force anything. And at 16.5 points, he's hitting about 50-50 if he's going to go over that mark through the NCAA. Well, I guess that's impossible because he played 5 games. But I think he's only gone over 16.5 points 3 times.
I would definitely look at that under. Really good score, but like the last 2 games, you said it, he's shooting like 75% from the floor and he's averaging 19.5 points over those 2 games. So yeah, he's one who could shoot the ball like the opposite of Caleb Love. He might only shoot the ball like 12 times and still have a good game, but finish with like 15 efficiently, let some of his other guys get involved and find a way to win. So I think, yeah, he's an interesting under as well, just because he doesn't, force his way into the action.
Here's a fun one. I just want to bring it up before we get out of here. Armando Baycott, over under 13.5 total rebounds. He's gone over 20 the last 2 games. I think he had 24 against St. Peter's. I think he had 21 against Duke.
He's a rebounding freak. So even unhealthy, I would feel if I would not bet his under rebounds because I would just feel sad watching him like patrol the paint the entire game. I mean, the guy's gotten close to that here recently in the NCAA tournament, like just with his defensive rebounds. And he's getting like 5+ a game on the offensive glass. So that's an interesting one. Maybe you look at some guys like McCormick you had mentioned. Maybe you look for an under with him because, maybe North Carolina does a little better job controlling the paint. So maybe he gets some fewer rebounds. I don't know.
He also only averages like 8 a game. So like he's not like for being a 6'10", 250 behemoth of a man, he doesn't average a ton of rebounds. And then on top of that, he's going to be fighting with Baycott. So I think Baycott's going to take some rebounds away from McCormick's total. I wrote in an article for the drf.com/sports, wrote a preview for this game. And one of my bets was the under on David McCormick rebounds. I think at the time when I wrote it, I think this line's moved a little bit. I think it was 8.5 when I wrote it. And I said under. I still like under 7.5. I think he'll be sitting at about the 6 to 7 mark. And at 7, you get the under. You cash that, walk it to the window, get your win. So I think McCormick under rebounds, Baycott over rebounds, and then Abaji under points, and Caleb Love just because he's going to take 82 shots over points.
Yeah, I think those are fun. And even if they burn you, I feel like the logic there would make me, and this is my very like casual betting logic, where it's like if Caleb Love goes under his points and he misses like, 15 of his 22 shots, like fine.
Yeah.
But like,
exactly.
I know he's gonna.
Mainly, I'm betting on the fact that I know Caleb Love is going to take 25 shots. So if he doesn't get his point total, but he hits 25 shots, I'm like, all right, my logic was there. Like any other game, he's going to hit the over.
Yeah, he's one that I could see him getting 20, even if the game kind of goes under. He feels like the one guy in this game that, like, if anyone's going to score, it's probably him, just because he's putting up a lot of shots. And then the other one that obviously makes a lot of sense for this game, or this week, I should say, Tiger Woods to make the cut at the Masters. Look, I watched a little bit of Golf Channel today. They were showing just like a Tiger cam.
Yeah.
I like his movement. I like his motion right now, Jack.
All right.
So
maybe we turn this into the Masters only podcast. And even when we're coming up in like the Players Championship and we just still are talking about the Masters. I think he's plus 5,000 to win.
I would not take someone who hasn't played a competitive round in 17 months and had like a car accident that nearly led to the amputation of his leg to win. But
that's better odds than Bubba Watson, Max Homa, like Justin Rose, which Bubba Watson, a 2-time Masters champion. Max Homa never won, but like it's Max Homa and he's always like weirdly somehow around.
He's in better form. I would almost like Tiger over Bubba at this point. Bubba plays the course well, but his like he hasn't been as relevant the last few years.
Oh no, not at all. But like these are just names. And then Justin Rose, I think, has come in second at the Masters. Like
he's got good course history
3 times,
similar to Bubba. Yeah, good course history, but another. But it's crazy because like the guy, like
that's exactly his leg was almost amputated a year ago, and you're telling me he has better odds than the 2 times Masters champion. Like, and I know he's been out of the spotlight. He's not been good. I don't think he has a win in like the last 3 years. But homie, Tiger Woods almost had his leg amputated.
And I love they're betting. A lot of these bets are obviously betting with your heart, right? And hoping that Tiger has this incredible comeback.
Yeah.
But it does crack me up looking at like all the sports book, like PR people that'll tweet out all these different stats of like how high the handle and the exposure is like of the sports book on Tiger. And it's like, the question is still like if he's capable of walking on Thursday to play. Like his swing is fine, whatever. It's like, can his leg, which was nearly severed, like can that hold up on a hilly golf course? And people are like, yeah, I'll take him to win.
I read a John Ewing tweet from BetMGM where he said the biggest liability for BetMGM is on Tiger. And like, if you're the sports book, you have to be happy about that, right?
Thrilled, I think, yeah.
Like your biggest liability might not finish Thursday because he's unable to.
Taking him to make the cut, though, I think is a fun one because he's going to have crazy crowd support. The swing is there, and he's super competitive. So I feel like that'll be in his mind, certainly, is to just grind through that. So that would be one if you're trying to bet Tiger with the heart. Maybe just go for making the cut because there's some guys who are in great form and didn't almost lose their leg a year ago that I think probably have a better chance. So maybe you sprinkle that in somewhere. I kind of like Spieth and Koepka are not in the best form, but they're both have decent course history and tend to perform well in majors. So I have both Spieth and Koepka winner tickets. They also haven't been in the best form, which means they're not the, not the lowest value. So there's a little value on those two. I like that. And then I think I threw a Matthew Fitzpatrick, like top 10 flyer in there.
I like that. Representing the Fitzpatrick name.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a fan. I like John Rahm. Give me Rahm.
Give you the favorite. Give you the tournament favorite. All right.
No, don't give me Rahm. No, actually, I would love Rahm. I love Rahm. But as I'm scrolling through, I'm trying to Will Zalatoris.
Zalatoris, yeah.
That's so wrong, but yeah.
If he's near the top, Jack, you do place that bet, you're gonna have a good time because he has the putting yips from like within 5 feet. One of the best ball strikers on planet Earth. But like when he gets in there to putt, he just like shakes.
Does he really have the putting yet? What
They're
happened?
bad. You should look them up. They're bad.
Wasn't he balling out like after last year's Masters?
He's great. He hits the ball like perfectly. He's one of the best like ball strikers, but the putting is just gross.
Was it bad at last year at the Masters? Like, has he always had
He's
this, or did
had
he
the
smooth
yips
it out
for
now?
like a while, but he goes on stretches where they're like serviceable, but he's had some gross ones. Some of it he says is because of like some back stuff that he deals with. And sometimes if like a nerve gets tight, that sounds like an excuse, but something he says. So something to keep an eye on. Maybe you can, I don't know how if you're able to parlay certain props on Tiger, things like that, but hey, you want to do a Tiger made cut with an under tonight? I don't know, throw it in. But
I have a question for you. Who's a long shot? I like how this is becoming a Masters podcast. We'll get up on out of here in just a few minutes. Who's your long shot to win? I'm looking at some guys.
that's a good
Maybe
question.
VJ Singh.
Stop it.
I couldn't even keep it together for that. No, but who's like a long shot you think can win? Someone plus 3,500 or better or worse.
Yeah. Let's see if we, Billy Horschel's been in decent form. He's interesting one
Okay.
plus 7,000. Don't love him though. Joaquin Neiman plus 6,500 has
I kind
had
of like
some.
Joaquin there.
He's had some good play. I honestly don't even hate the Max Homa one at plus 8,000. Like he's someone who's played a lot better in like tougher courses and tougher conditions the last couple of years. And it's going to be a grind. Like Friday looks like it's going to be a high of like 60-ish with like 25-mile-an-hour winds, which on that course is tough because you're trying to land it on really specific areas. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on given those tough conditions. And then even if you wanted someone else like Kevin Kisner plus 15,000 is one to potentially look at. Tough conditions. He tends to be a good putter, so maybe he's able to kind of lurk around and hang in there. But typically it's people who win, have a lot of experience there. You get older winners, more experienced guys. Maybe Kisner finds a way to do it. But as far as the young guns, give me some Max Homa. And I just feel like Spieth and Koepka are going to really play well, but we'll see.
Love it. Anything you got to plug before we get up on out of here for the last DRF College Sports podcast of this season?
Yeah, you can find my work. Typically, I'll tweet it out at Bennett Conlin. Was watching a Kansas hearing Friday night until 3 a.m. as they slowly work toward legalization. We'll see if they get there. Georgia, you got 6 hours left to legalize it, or at least make a push toward putting it on the ballot to have it be legalized. And doesn't seem like they're going to do it, Jack. So don't hold your breath on that one. I'm not staying up until midnight to watch that. I will be watching the basketball game until midnight, I think, though. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, you can find all my work at Bennett Conlin, and then sportshandle.com is where most of that goes. So yes.
Love it. Want to shout out B. Williams watching over there on YouTube. Good season. Thank you so much, B. Williams. That means a lot to us. We half the time flying by the seat of our pants, but we made it through the season, handed out some winners in the regular season. I hope you faded us throughout March Madness. You can follow us for all things DRF Sports at DRF_sports. Bennett has another thing, so I'll let him say it right here.
Yes, he had mentioned the vibes, the good vibes. We've been betting on vibes all year, Jack. Do you have a favorite vibes bet where it's like, you know what? The vibes are good. This will be a fun one to root for. Is there anything there that really stands out to you?
Masters or college basketball?
You can pick whatever you want.
The vibes tell me UNC. Like their vibes are so high that like you got to ride that high vibe. Like I understand the emotional letdown. I like these hand movements I'm doing too. I also cut my thumb, like chopped the top off earlier today. So the vibes will be riding high, you know? And if they can keep that riding high, they're here. Where Kansas vibes are down here. Like they've been a steady vibe train all year. UNC is just a little up and down. So I like the vibes on UNC. I also like the vibes on John Rahm.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you're betting on vibes, like good vibes, I'm taking Carolina money line and Caleb Love over points.
Oh, we're also going vibes, Baycott, alt spread. I know you can't alt spread it for player props. Alt spread 22 over rebounds. He's going to just eat them up.
I wish there was more of that in the college game where you can go in like FanDuel and you can do those same game parlays. You can do like to get 20 plus rebounds or whatever. Don't have that same level of things typically on various sports books for college sports. But yeah, the vibes to me, If you're going vibes, I would actually go Carolina. I'm not doing that. I'm going against the vibes, which is a risky play.
And
But
you're going with the public.
yeah, doing that, and I'm taking the under, which the vibes probably say over. So I've gone against the vibes, which is a disappointing way for this podcast to end, to realize that I've gone against the vibes.
Yes, but thank you to everyone for tuning in. Follow us at DRF_sports. Keep up to date with everything. We have plenty of MLB, NBA playoff, NHL Stanley Cup playoffs coming down the pipe. It's going to be a fantastic off season here at DRF Sports. Bennett may pop in and out. We may have live streams, so keep your tweet notifications on. We'll pop in and out on your YouTubes, on your Twitters, on your Facebooks, on your live streams, wherever you find us. You can subscribe to the podcast wherever you find your podcast. Subscribe to the DRF College Sports one. Subscribe to the DRF Sports one. We're always trying to hand out winners. We're trying to make it profitable. We're trying to make betting fun. So thank you again to everyone for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See you next season. See ya.